Thanks, man. I see 6:01. Are we all ready to begin? Good. It's there. All right, welcome everybody to the July 19th board meeting. I believe we'll start with roll call. Guy? Here. Derek? I'll note that Derek is absent and did notify me in advance with some comments on the agenda and board goals. Kenny? Here. And Nick? Here. All right, and I'm here. All right, I believe we do have public comment today.
Yeah. So, in the doctor here. Which side are you?
They might go over the 3 minutes of a lot of time.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay, so Josh and I are part of Fall Rivers FBLA Club, which is Future Business Leaders of America. And we went to the national conference this summer. So what is FBLA?
So FBLA is the largest business, career, and technical student organization in the entire world. It has 230,000 plus members in the United States. It involves service project, educational initiatives, and competitive events in which the reason why me and Willow both competed at the National Leadership Conference. And
Some large Wisconsin chapters that are in our state that really have a lot of people are Oak Creek, Middleton, Portage, Campbellsport, Chilton, DeForest, Muskego, and Germantown. These are all people that also had kids go to nationals. Some of the partners that FBLA works with is March of Dimes, which helps. It helps fight for the health of mothers and babies who have premature births. And a lot of service projects throughout the state partner with March of Dimes. This is one of the service projects that they really get behind. There is the Lead for Change, which is an organization that offers leadership workshops to students. So it's a really good segue to get into leadership certifications at local charities. And then there's also the Business Achievement Awards, which I have 3 of them, which is a individual achievement award program for active high school members in FBLA. They have the opportunity to enhance their leadership skills, expand business knowledge, contribute to local communities, and earn recognition. That's one of their education and leadership initiatives. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. This is us at Centennial Park, and that is the hotel we stayed in the background.
Yeah, I asked where the 3rd floor was because we were in room 36 something, and the guy said, "Sir, you're not on the 3rd floor. You're on the 36th."
was the speaker at the opening ceremony. We were able to listen to him speak about his experiences, and he said, I believe that NLC is one of the grandest celebrations of youth achievement there is, convening some of the most talented and driven students from across the country.
Jordan.
Jordan Davis, yes.
So it was held at the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Here was the self-proclaimed mascot for Wisconsin when we met up at the Wisconsin sort of regional lounge with everybody that came from Wisconsin. This is the testing area. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a big room full of a bunch of little, this is about half of it. So it is a massive room where it's just little individualized testing boxes. I'm familiar with that. This was the opening ceremony, a very zoomed in photo, because it was an assembly of, remember?
Multiple thousand.
And it was 13,000 people each ceremony. It was a lot. And then there were workshops. I think that one was the Super Bowl marketing campaign one, and one where we're in the photo somewhere. right there. Yeah, and that was run by national officers, different experts around the world.
Mhm.
There's that one guy from Liverpool talking about interview strategies. It was really a good experience, to learn a lot. I'll talk about the statistics.
So the statistics are that, 2,000 qualify for state in Wisconsin, because there are 8 regions. We have regional and then state and then nationals. And for the top 3 in each category advance on to the next round. And then out of those 2,000 people, 300 qualify for nationals, which is the top 4 from each category advance in the state of Wisconsin to compete at nationals. And there was 13,000, you're right then, total delegates from all states, territories, and international chapters. It was very interesting seeing some of the international chapters because every state was announced and all the international, like, I believe there was some from, what was it, Canada, China,
Puerto Rico.
Puerto
yeah.
Rico, yeah, there was other ones, there was like a country from Africa, I remember.
Yeah, there's one.
Yeah, it was, I didn't personally know there was ones out of the country until I went there, and then, so 8 Fall River students in recorded school history have, including this year, have qualified for nationals.
And just to reiterate, only 300 students from Wisconsin get to go to the National Leadership Conference. So having people go is a big accolade. And we were also able to enjoy different parts of Atlanta. There was the FBLA night at the Georgia Aquarium where they hired out a band to come perform and saw a lot of people there. There was the Atlanta Botanical Garden. We had these banners up all around downtown Georgia, and then also historical park. Very fun to go to all these things. One big part is representing Harvard. These are a couple of students from Columbus that I know pretty well. Jamie is actually a state officer now this year, and so that was really cool to be able to come and meet up with her. She was busy with all these meetings, and it was just fun to see her running around. And then this was a map with a bunch of little pins, I don't know if you can see, with all of the chapters from around the state. And then there are 2 little red pins right there, Columbus and Fall River. For representing Fall River, just for some area schools, Columbus only sent 5 people, Middleton had 32, Cambria sent 2 students, DeForest sent 4, Fall River sent 2, Portage sent 6, and Ripon sent 6. So kind of comparing the size of DeForest and Columbus versus we're sending pretty similar numbers to them is kind of a big deal. So people at our conference that did not send any students this year were Johnson Creek, Rio, Deerfield, Hardyville, and Martin. And so it's just a really major accolade to be sending students to nationals for FBLA. And it's a major accolade for the school itself to prove that there are results and we are competitive on a national and state level.
Hey, Willem, with those schools, like, are there schools that have students that qualify, but the schools choose to not send them? Or is that just that they didn't have any qualifying?
These ones are all like full qualifying. So
Okay.
the people who qualified did not.
So it's more it's qualifying, not necessarily who went.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And yeah, big thank you to the board for helping sponsor the trip. However, FBLA also paid for a portion of the trip. Our parent organization and Athletic Booster Club also paid for a portion.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do it without funding from them because it was able to be an amazing trip that definitely was helped that we were supported by our school.
What's happening in Columbus next year? Oh, our regional conference, that's the first level of competition, is actually being held by Jamie, a friend from earlier, in Columbus next year. So it's right next door. Pretty cool.
Do I remember you going to Georgia Tech?
Mhm.
Did you see campus while you're down there?
Yes, I actually went for an orientation the day before this started. Yeah, so then I'm working on pretty well.
Okay, cool. Will, what are your BAs?
BAs, I have leader, future, and business. So I've done a lot of projects and community service hours.
Congratulations, to both of you.
Thank you.
Good job. All right, well, thank you for that. So, in the packet this week, we put the minutes from last month's meeting. Any questions or comments on last month's meeting minutes? Hearing none, I will take a motion for approval. I'll motion to accept the meetings of last month.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Ken, second by Guy. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, can we get a treasurer's report?
The first page of your treasurer's report, it's getting close to the final numbers for the year. The auditors were here yesterday, they're here today, and they're gonna be here tomorrow. When they finish up the work with, mostly with Andrea, Tony and I, we'll have a pretty good idea whether journal entries need to be made. There are still some, revenues and expenditures that have to be retroactively put into last year. Fund 27 transfer from Fund 10 to 27, because the zero out the special education fund is a big one. But there's an open enrollment numbers that plus and minus they haven't been reported yet too. So there's a lot of those that we're working on now with the auditors, make sure it's all ready. I think by October, we'll probably have a good idea where each of these funds end up, but at least we're getting close. And you can see some of that on the second page where, the operating transfers, there's really not much there yet because that part hasn't been done. It's kind of interesting with, Fund 10, we don't know the files yet. Fund 27 is really pretty close, and we're a little over the expenditures than expected, but we also added staff for second semester. That was not fully expected when we did that. Food service, there's still some commodities that still have to be reported, and we approved the dishwasher to be replaced. Because we had more money than the DPI said we should have in food service because we paid like $150,000 profit last year. And so that supposed to go in June, and it didn't happen. So they're waiting on grease trap permits to go through, so then they can do it. So Brian Anderson's gonna tear out everything, they're just gonna do the implementation. But he can't tear it out, so we know we have an exact date that are coming, he'll tear it out in one day. Get rid of it, so that part's still yet to be done, but hopefully October, we have the pretty closely expecting.
Dennis, any questions on the treasurer's report? I will take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
You have a second? I'll second. All right, we have a motion by Guy, seconded by Ken. All those in favor, vote aye. Aye. All those opposed. All right, also the details of payroll, was provided for 7/28 through 8/15. I will go ahead and make a motion for vouchers 424-689 through 424-815 and vouchers 2022-00-675 through 2022-00-722, amount of $559,367.25.
You mix those numbers up, Jeff, if it matters.
Did I?
You said 675, it should say 657. If that matters.
Yeah, we will append the motion for Kenny's comment. And do I have a second? I'll second. We have a motion by Jeff, appended by Ken, seconded by me. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed? Moving on to gifts and donations.
Yeah, so there was, one this past month, a youth football donation by the Fall River Booster Club, so they've really helped out our athletics this year. Been great to see all the support we get from them.
And what was it? Just cash or was it equipment?
I don't know what it was used for.
Here's the dollar.
I think you're gonna go to buy new helmets. I thought they got new helmets 6 years.
We have 12 to 15 new helmets right now. We're working on inventory for padded rec and middle school football. But plus, shoulder pads, fans, they helped out very good.
All right, moving on to new business. Rob, I think you get to present the co-curricular handbook.
Here's a copy, it's kind of old handbook. I was gonna pull both up, but
Should have that.
They have it.
they get both the old and the new.
Yeah.
All right, I wasn't sure if that's the old one.
Oh, you don't have the old one.
That's just a copy of the old one, because I had some changes that were made. I emailed you, and I emailed you the changes and the PowerPoint. Okay, and so, when reviewing the 2022-2023 handbook, Dr. Shefkow and I we found a few discrepancies that don't really meet the criteria of what needs to be in here. So if you, look at page 3, bullet 2, there was a word retroactive that really didn't make sense. So we took basically that one word retroactive out on page 3 under bullet, the second bullet. We just removed the word retroactive. So nothing really changed other than retroactive. Page 3, bullet 4, there was a signature page. We've got rid of that because we have the signature page on our website that parents sign for their code of conduct and the WI eligibility. And then we were gonna move that signature page to 16. Then Kelly and I discussed today, we don't need another signature page because they're already signing the WIA form, they're signing our school form, it's just, we don't need 3 forms. So we amended that and we're not gonna have a signature page on this, it's just true code of particular handbook. Then if you look at page 3, where it says chain of command, we removed Dave's name from in there. And then we kind of talked about what happens if a parent is having an issue with a coach. And so we always say that basically, if you're a family member or if you're a parent upset with the coach, you first go to that coach unless there's 3 things. We changed it to unethical, immoral, or illegal. So those are 3 times where parents should step over the coach's head and come strictly to the athletic director. If they feel like there's something that's really going to affect our school district, our children, and the safety of our kids, I believe that's imperative to be in there because that clearly states, like, if it's a playing time issue, that's not unethical, that's not immoral, and that's not unsafe. So you go to your coach first. But if it's one of those things, and if we need to describe that, I guess we can, but I think most of us, what's unethical, immoral, and unsafe.
Well, and we could redirect them to, if someone did come to us for playing time claiming it was unethical. That's their perspective, but that's not ours as a school.
And then, on page 4, we just changed the code as effect 12 months per year, and it applies to 6th to 12th grade athletes. Before it stated only 9th to 12th grade, but now we're having middle school sign the code of conduct. So we've made that change. It's from 9th to 12th to 6th to 12th for that. And then it's co-curricular participants, managers, and institutions. So it's everybody kind of involved in sports or in the extracurricular activities. Page 5, where it says other groups. Instead of other groups, like they had track team, powerlifting, etc., we just made it under a blanket statement, so the changes included all co-curricular activities, so that's all sports, all activities. We did determine band would not be in there because students get credit for band for playing that game, so we left like individual, and we made it kind of if you're in a co-curricular activity. Page 6, we just wrote, we're waiting for like after this is presented. If the school board does approve it, we wrote that we're having a meeting July 19th, 2023. If you look at page 6, we deleted the form, and so there's the impact testing. Back in the day, WIA required impact testing for the season. That's no longer required. And our training services right now, we're still working on getting our training services finalized, but that's not a requirement to WIA. If a student does have concussion, then they'll undergo that impact and concussion testing, but WI doesn't require it as they used to. You kind of look at a screen and have you look at images and you click. And so, unfortunately, right now we don't have the athletic trainer service that we have. They don't provide that.
Well, I know that was kind of hard to do just regular without a concussion, let alone having to do.
It is, yeah. It's a little different. So, like, obviously, like if a coach has a suspicion of a player having concussion, then we will have an athletic trainer see that and address that, and then go through the proper protocols with the athletic training services. But as far as WI, that's just not a form that's needed anymore. So we took that out. And then under page 6, under the first bullet, it says weekly grade monitoring. Before it just stated it would be done by the math coordinator. I'm going to kind of take on that role. So I put the AD and the math coordinator. So what we're going to do is we're going to run weekly education reports. The first report, if students have failing grades, this is just explaining kind of that's already in the code, but how we're going to have it is if a student fails a class, that first, when we're on the first reports, the parents will be notified, that teacher will be notified, and then the family will be notified. I'll work with those students to get them into like a WIN or intervention mentoring group and try to work with them to get their grades up. So the first time is kind of, I wouldn't say a free pass, but it's like get your stuff together, get your things in order. If it happens a second time, then that goes into, if you're failing for 2 straight weeks, and that goes into where you're gonna miss 1 game, failing 2. If you're failing 2 classes, 40%. So, which leads into the next part, page 11 through 14. We changed the code violations. Before it was 1 through 4 on the old one, very wordy. And every single punishment was the same. It was 33%, no matter if you got caught with narcotics, no matter if you're failing the class, no matter if you get caught vaping with a beer. So I kind of structured these changes through one. So for rule 1, if it's a conduct and behavior issue at the first level, so like if you get, for instance, you get caught drinking beer or vaping, you're gonna have a 20-game suspension, or yeah, sorry, 20% suspension or 2-game suspension. If you self-report on your first incident, if you come clean and say, hey, I got caught doing this, so I was at a party, I got caught doing this, we'll work with that student and that family if they join like an AODA class, a mentoring class, something that shows us you're gonna try to improve your life. We'll miss the suspension to 1 game for the first offense, or half that offense. Under rule 2, we made that a little more strict. So if you're gonna use like illegal substance, if you get caught with smoking marijuana or anything that could be harder, illicit narcotic, then your suspension is going to be, I believe it says 33% in there. But if you come and report and self-report the same situation on the first offense, then we're gonna work on limiting that suspension to about 25%. And then the last is attendance at a gathering. So if you're at a party, you're not drinking, you're not under the influence, but you get caught at a party, the first offense is gonna be a 1-game suspension versus a 33% of your season suspension. All these standards are at least at WIA's level or above and we went. So I felt like having clear specifications other than making every single classroom 33%, this gives kind of different levels. And that's all the changes that I made to the.
I'm gonna go back a topic and just confirm for the MASH or the single game suspension, is it still an NE is equivalent to an F? So a single NE on any project is an F.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to not be nonverbal. I was taking that.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, we did do that.
And he is incomplete, is that what it was?
Yeah, his turn's up.
Yeah.
Okay,
It means that they were not able to demonstrate understanding or show any evidence of learning for that specific standard.
if, Brock, I got 2 questions.
Yep.
The grade monitoring. It said it would go to parents and stuff like that, would it also go to the coaches?
Parent coach, so, parent, athlete, coach.
Okay,
They'll all be
okay,
notified.
so they'll all be notified
Yep.
that they'd have 4 grades, okay,
Absolutely.
because to be honest with you, a coach can handle that pretty efficiently.
Absolutely.
A
So
lot of times.
what I'll do is I'll start like with each coach or like with each sport, I'll start like a Google Doc. And we'll put like a run Google Doc, so that way the coach will have that updated doc weekly on what kids are
Okay,
week 1, and so they'll
That's-
be communicated to them that way.
that's all I need to know on that one, and then on the other one, on page 6 is, it was, just let me think here. Oh, the 6 to 12, you changed it from 9 to 12 to 6 to 12?
It was, so before 9 through 12, when we signed the co-curricular code, now we're
Oh,
having
okay.
6 through 12th grade, so, it won't carry over, so like, from elementary to middle school grades aren't gonna carry over like that, so it's kind of a fresh start. in
If,
sixth grade.
no, I was talking more about an athletic code violation. Was our athletic code violations always, did we always go from 6 to 12? If they got caught in middle school doing something wrong, did it always go on to their high school record, or did
I don't-
they, I think it
The way
started
it's
new
stated
as
was
a
that they-
freshman?
once they
Yes, it'll
accepted
start
the
clear as a
code-
freshman, it'll start, so like,
so even if they got,
if you were coded for, say, drinking in 8th grade, and you serve that suspension, you start fresh over, like that's not carrying
It
over.
won't be a second offense.
There won't be a second offense. No, we're gonna make that separate.
I don't think we had any.
But even with the new one, we wanted to make sure that we gave kids, I mean, we're dealing with adolescents. We wanted
Yep.
to make sure we gave kids a fresh start their freshman year to be able to not, automatically jump in.
I can agree with that 100%. I do know we had some issues.
Yeah.
Years ago, I've had to sit in on a couple of these things that, how come this isn't a second offense because a kid got caught in middle school? Why isn't this in the second offense?
There was no true punishment on the
Yeah.
code for seventh graders.
And as long as it's spelled out, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem.
Is there a reason why it feels like the violations have gotten softer?
Oh, I thought they got harder. They actually got harder.
Really?
Yeah, the difference why it might feel is that because they were all the same. And so now we try to tier it with the level of behavior. So like if you're like kind of
Oh, I
like
get
Rob has said, like if you're caught using an illegal substance, you're not getting the same punishment as if you were at a party or failing in class. Just to kind of tier them a little bit.
The way I looked at it too is so the previous, like if you fail 2 classes, 66% of your season. So if you look at a football season, if you're failing 1 or 2 classes, you're gonna now sit out seven out of your 9 football games that you're gonna miss. I just feel like that's way up in the state average. And I look at sports, if you have kids that are struggling like that, they're more likely gonna quit with that type of suspension. I always look at discipline as something we do for kids, not to them. And so we're trying to work with kids, like, understandable as if the second offenses, we get a lot stricter. We're still stricter than the 33%. Like if you fail in 2 classes, you're still sitting 40% of your season. If you get caught with a second drug or alcohol suspension, you're missing 50% of your season, which is still higher than the WI state average. So we tried to look at first time offenders and work at more of a system, like we're gonna work with you, not against you. But if you do this a second or third violation, you're in trouble. And it states in there, if anybody gets 4 violations, they're kicked out of that sport for the entire school year. So I don't feel like we're fully lacking. I just feel like having different level tiers for failing a class and getting caught with cocaine have the same suspension. To me, that's ludicrous.
Okay.
Was there a specific one that you were looking
I'm
at?
sorry?
Was there a specific thing that was jumping out at you?
Well, it just seems like, I guess it seems like the first offense seems like it is kind of a slap on the wrist. It doesn't really reward the kids that aren't doing it at all.
Is it a level 1, 2? Is there a differentiation?
Yeah, the first offense.
There is,
We can change on.
no, I'm not trying to make a big deal, I'm just asking questions, I'm not asking for change. I just asking the question, because it seems like, it just doesn't seem like it's rewarding the kids that aren't doing it at all, and that the first one is kind of a slap on the wrist. That's just my view of it, I'm not saying that it's wrong, I'm not saying it's wrong.
So if a person gets caught in basketball, first offense, you got 26 games, 20% of that would be 1/5 of the season would be about 5.5 games. Yep. 5.5.
Depends on the sports, like for volleyball, if they play 5, that's one thing that we have to maybe have more clear, like in volleyball, if you play a tournament and there's 5 games, are they sitting out 2 whole consecutive events? Or are they sitting out
The 5 games.
the five games in that tournament? So that's one thing that maybe
I would get something rolled down on that.
yeah, and I talked about that when I put there like in the things we can.
And I brought 3 number, because even we looked at it even for like, say, the musical. If you're not in anything else, if you're staying out an entire
Or
performance.
prom, or homecoming, or.
Yeah, we have that, yeah.
And we ran into that already this year
Yeah.
with,
So
oh, that's right, you were
I was
there.
sitting there, I was taking money. Minding my own business. Minding my own business.
Sorry.
One thing I like about our code is it's way more than the minimum on grades. We have a proactive system where they monitor weekly. Most schools do the WIA minimum, which is at the end of each quarter or at the end of each grading period, they decide if you're eligible or not. So the kid in football, he could play the whole football season, as long as he is passing at the end of the 4th quarter, you get to play the whole football season, whether you're doing anything or not.
Yep.
So this is much more proactive, stay up, keep up your grades, and we don't just check every 9 weeks, we're checking on you all the time.
And not only that, but you can't let a kid dig too deep of a hole.
Mhm.
You know, I mean,
Yeah. Before you get so far.
And I agree with you, but it was, we went back and forth on that fine line, like, I'd like to take a proactive approach to work with kids, but at the same time, you need to know, like,
You
there are
messed
certain
up.
rules you messed up and you should feel some type of consequence. So I definitely get that. I thought I'd maybe have some backlash with just changing the different levels, but I just look at punishment and it's like, at first time it was kind of one size fits all, so I try to like differentiate it and make it. a little
No, Brock, you put some thought into it. That's great. That's awesome.
Real quick technical question on the difference in rule 2 and rule 1 on page 11. You've got vaping devices in rule 2, yet tobacco is rule 1. Do we need to clarify like non-tobacco vaping? But I don't know if you can tell, but I would assume that's gonna be a common one.
Yeah, there should have been, I thought we may have missed that when we were going through it, because that would be the difference between the whether you got a THC vape or.
Yes,
Yeah.
THC tobacco.
What page was that on?
That was.
Page 11, A.
What says, yeah, selling, possession of use of these drugs, possession of drug paraphernalia, and controlled substances.
You think it's covered with it's talking about illegal drugs?
I think so. I mean, I think it's
Everyone.
implied. I just, I worry that I just don't want
Someone
someone to
will
get
go through
back into that because they had a vape pen in their pocket,
Mhm.
which is clearly intended for rule 1, but
Right.
then, it's a.
We could add like under one, add like tobacco or vaping tobacco products.
Yeah, yeah.
I do, yeah.
Nicotine products.
Yeah, I just wanted to. limit
Tobacco,
those.
tobacco. Or.
Any questions for Brock?
well, actually, I think you'll study this, so I'm happy with everything.
What was your committee to work with?
Dr. Chuptow and I, and then Colleen kind of was my English teacher.
Oh, man, I used to coach some youth rec teams. Trust me, she's more than an English. She's party coordinator. too. Oh,
She keeps me in line though.
yeah, she's awesome. There she is. She's an awesome lady.
Thank you for the suggestion for looking over that. I felt like there are certain things that need to be updated and it always helps to have more eyes on it. And next year, if there's more changes that need to be made or implemented, this is kind of an open running document. We're always willing to take a look at it each year and see how we can.
Trust me, if there's a loophole, they'll find it.
Absolutely.
That was the first couple weeks ago.
Good, just kind of getting feet wet. I got out and we have quite a few community members that donated to our ad sponsors, so it's been nice getting to see some community members meet local businesses and now it's just getting into the athletics, recreations, all the makeup. I think in 20 years, I don't think Wisconsin's ever had to cancel games because of smoke. Or
Yeah.
flooders, so that was interesting. So thank you for bearing with that kind because it was constant back and forth. Hey, this game's canceled, this game's canceled. So, but overall, it's been good, very supportive staff and very supportive community members. So I appreciate everybody and all the help that I've received.
Thanks, working with Katrina Blevins, who's kind of helping organize some of the stuff at the rec center for the swimming and the lifeguard, and she's gonna assist in some of those things to take a little bit off the slate.
Can I just jump in really fast? I don't know what you're saying, so you are gonna say, okay, then never mind. You're my thank you this month, so I.
Thank you, guys.
All right, with that, I will take a motion on the co-curricular handbook, obviously with the minor adjustment we discussed today.
I'll make a motion to approve the co-curricular handbook for, do we want to say 2023, 2024?
I'll second it, Joe.
All right, we have a motion by Nate, second by Guy. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, vote aye.
Hi.
All those opposed? Okay, we will move on to the exciting, I guess another exciting topic, the 23-24 budget.
This is exciting because I will not bury the lead. We went out on faith last year. And hired extra staff we thought was necessary to make our students, give our students the best opportunities to growth and learning. We added this special ed teacher in the middle of the year, guidance counselor in the middle of the year, this year adding another tech ed teacher and another social studies teacher. And we kind of went on our faith, like, well, we'll see what what the state does for us. And, our prayers were answered. I fully expected that they would not give us enough money to fund those things, and that we'd be looking at a referendum this spring. I just thought that's what's gonna have to be. Based on what the governor signed, unless things get overturned in court with some of his things that he did, I'm not looking at a referendum this spring, probably not next spring, maybe not, who knows ever. That was really, really good news to me. And that's also a lot less work. And that's one of the downfalls of the system that we've had where schools constantly got to go to referendum to get enough money to operate is people like us and people in Philly spend so much time just asking for the money that we need to operate. If the 325 does stay in place, and that's, that's what the Supreme Court's gonna look at that and decide, then that'll stay in place as long as we have a governor who believes that that should stay in place. So the governor can line and veto anytime that someone says that they can pass the Senate and Assembly saying schools will get 0 next year, 200 next year, they can line and veto that. So as long as there's a governor in place who believes that we should be getting 325, in my bear forecast, it looks like we aren't looking at referendum, and most schools probably wouldn't be looking at overriding revenue limits probably for a long time. So that was extremely encouraging. And like I said, our prayers were answered. Someone was doing something right around here. So I was really amazed by that. How the mechanics of that work, we spent on a revenue limit about $10,000, let's say $200 per student. The floor was 10,000. You had to get at least 10,000. We were above that. Well, if you add 325 to that, you're at 10,550. But now they raised that ceiling from 10 to 11. So we got the extra $400 to get up to 11. So we've got close to an $800 per student increase. Now, that sounds like, well, we can ask for the revenue limit extra on that, but that's gonna make our taxes jump up. Well, remember last year, we over levied our Fund 39, to put some extra money in our, pay off our debt early, to kind of keep our mill rate level. That's about the difference in amount of money. When we get to the sheet, it's like, really not gonna change our taxes much. So it's amazing that this is all worked out. I would not have guessed this is the case. So what you have is a 5-year spreadsheet of the revenue limits. You can see how from last year to this next year. And of course, this all gets figured out in October. End of October, we'll have our meeting to finalize this. Once we have the final state aid, final property tax values, people count, open enrollment numbers. Once all those things are in, we'll get the final numbers. But this is the expectation right now. Revenue limit going up over $400,000. But again, there's that money that we overlaid last year for debt service, which we could do for debt service, we can't do for regular education funds. State equalization aid didn't go up very much, $75,000, but it went up a whole bunch last year. And we talked about in our leadership meeting this morning, is because state aid is tied to your pupil count, but it's always 1 year delayed. And if you look at the very bottom line, from 2021 to 21-22, we had a jump of 12 students. So the next year we got that boost in state aid. That's when that came in. So that's always 1 year delayed. Only 2% growth in state aid. Our Fund 10 levy going up $400,000, kind of like the revenue is going up. But our all fund tax levy, right now we're thinking it's going to go up less than $4,000. So with all this extra revenue limit authority, we're only going to ask for $4,000 from the entire community extra. And that's what we legally can ask for under revenue limits. So the equalized property value, I have a very modest 2% gain there. You look at what it's been the last few years, it jumped. So if the property values go up much more than 2%, that next row where the mill rate was staying kind of even this year compared to this past year, it'll probably actually go down quite a bit. So we'll have to think about how we want to work that mill rate when we come to October. We may over levy a little bit like we did. It'll go to the tax burden, but if you keep the mill rate levy, but we'll decide in October and figure out how we'd like to. You know, one of our goals is look at long-term financial stability, and that's one of the things we can look at. That $400,000 or so that we put into the debt service fund balance, we can use that when our debt is callable. I think it's 2 or 3 years from now. Like when you're partway through the loan, that's the time you can say, okay, we can use this money to pay down the debt, take a year's payments off the debt, short it from a 20-year to an 18-year loan or something like that. It saves hundreds of thousands of dollars and you can pay off your anything early. So that is a possibility, but we don't have to decide that tonight. most of this is we have a budget, so we can operate till October. And, we have something in Skyward and people know what to kind of expect. But if you look at the next part, this is all the different funds broken down, and it got it pretty well, like it would be a balanced budget then because of the state giving us extra money. And they didn't give us much more than we needed, but we got what we needed, which again is still to me kind of a miracle. The first page is revenues, nothing terribly exciting there. If you look at the local sources, 210 tax, you can see the property tax for Fund 10, that's the big jump there. On the second page, the top part of it is a finish of revenues for Fund 10. And then the bottom starts the expenditures, and the expenditures are broken up into the different curriculums, like elementary is mostly the first one, 120 is science, math, English, art, many of those things. Vocational is 130, that's the tech ed mostly. 140, that's physical education. 160 co-curriculars. You can see on our 160,000, we spend $200,000 of our whole budget on athletics. You think about close to $7 million budget, 200,000 is a fairly small part of that. It's not just athletics, it's also other co-curriculars like FBLA. Their budget is part of that. Many of the clubs are also in that 160,000. It's not just athletics, but that's what the majority of it is. Then 170 is a few other things, mostly special. I think our instructional coach is probably included in that part. Then you get into the 200,000 pupil services, nursing, guidance, the 220 and 230. We start talking about administration and business services and central services. A lot of the 250s is it's not just the business people, but it's all the stuff that Brian Anderson takes care of. All buildings and grounds, all their expenses go through there. All the transportation goes through there. It's the administration of our district. Insurance, all the different insurances we have, the 270,000, the debt service. We did not do short-term borrowing last year, and we probably aren't going to do that again. So I put 0 for interest there. Then you get the interfund transfer. That's mostly Fund 27, and then 430,000. A lot of those things are open enrollments and money to CISA for the programs that we get from them. That's what most of this 430,000 is. So then that total expenditure matches the total of the revenues. You go back to that first page, you see that the fund balance had been coming into last year. It was 1.3 million. We went up like $900 last year. And this past year, we were expecting a deficit. I had a structural deficit, but we were going to fill in that mostly probably with the less of the COVID relief money. So I don't think it's actually going to go down. We might come close to even again. So you'll find out when we get this in October. We'll get the same kind of sheet to show what happened for that. But we did spend the rest of the COVID relief money, and that was to help us get through this year. It actually made it work. It may have got us through this year with fairly even budget, and then it's on, and the state gave us enough money. I still can't believe it. I'm happy boy. Special ed fund, much similar kind of things. The revenues are all on the first page and the top of the second page. Kind of compare the 3 years. They always give us a 3 years comparison thing here. Much of the biggest part of this is going to be the Fund 27 transfer from Fund 10. That's where most of the money comes. And the next page, we get into the expenditures for Fund 27, and at the bottom of that page, you get the debt service. Fund 38 and Fund 39 together. Fund 38 is a non-referendum debt. It's $375,000 loan that we got to finish the ballparks. We have to still think about what we're going to do with the pool. As we talked to Brian Anderson, the part that was approved to get fixed, they didn't finish, did they?
No.
They're working on that now, the guts of the pool downstairs, but we're looking at more of the inside of the diving boards, the tile and stuff like that. And if this all holds, the budget sticks through, we could have some money in next year's budget take care of maybe the pool without dipping into our other funds or looking for a referendum to get it, or it's possible, if we have enough money, so Brian is, Roy kind of assigned, said, it's possible, July 1 next year, we can do whatever we need to do to that pool to finish it, up to a certain amount, at least. He's gonna see what the cost might be, what we can do, or if it's 2 phases, we do some 1 year and some the next year. So, that's, I always kind of figured, as we talked in our vision meeting today, there's no way that the state's gonna give us enough money, we're gonna have to go in the spring to ask for money, and we can tempt people to vote yes, because we can add the pool costs into that, is, well, yeah, I'll vote for the pool, well, probably don't need to go to referendum, so we're looking at how we're gonna afford the pool ourselves in our long-term planning. It's for goals, but it fits right in there exactly what we want to do with the pool, but, Brian already knows, we start getting ducks in a row and see what might be available for next year.
Do we have a rough order of magnitude on that? Like, a rough order of magnitude, like, is that $500,000, is that $3 million? Do we have any idea?
We're thinking between 1 to 200,000. That was the guess we had last year at this time. With no way of funding it, so we didn't really pursue it a whole lot. Yep. So now, and part of that cost is what's already being eaten up downstairs. We're already taking some of that cost out of there. So it's a little bit less than we had anticipated at that time, but with working with this company we have this year, they've got connections with people who do the rest of the pool stuff. They don't do the rest of it, but they've got connections, so I think they can help us navigate who to get bids from. So we can kind of find out what is our best path forward. So hopefully by October, November, we start to have a better idea what that looks like too. The last page, then you got the Fund 50. You can see there how the fund balance went from 15,000 to 171,000. We expected it maybe go down a little bit this year. It'll go down more significantly once the dishwasher gets in. And then Fund 80, fairly steady. We got it to a point where we wanted to be kind of under levied 2 years ago. And now we got back up to a normal levy to fund it. And we're looking at the fund balance staying fairly steady for the community service. And I figure a $30,000 fund balance out of 115,000, that's enough. We won't ever be in a deficit there. So that's the budget we're looking at with those numbers. We'll give you much more detail in October, and you'll have to actually set the levy. So right now, you don't have to say, I approve that tax levy, because we aren't. It's just, I accept this budget as original budget we can work with until we get the final numbers in October.
Dennis, do you think that if our mill rate is at 6.75%, if we went to 6.85%, 0.1% higher? Now, I know I asked you this one other time, and you said that the state will only let us go to what our budget is?
The only thing you can use that for is for debt service. If we have debt early, you couldn't use it to fund things here.
But could you, if you took that 110%, could we say, well, hey, we're gonna spend that on paying the football field off, and then take some of the money we're gonna pay on the football field and pay for the pool?
I've never looked into that. I'd have to think about that.
I mean, 0.1%, I mean, I realize people don't wanna pay any more taxes than what they have to. But if we're fighting to get enough money just to fix the pool, I mean, 0.1%. I think more people would rather. I talk to a lot of people in the community, and I think a lot of people would rather have a little bit of a surplus for this school than to always be living on the edge. You know, I just.
Well, if what the governor did stays, we aren't living on the edge anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. I can say we could, that levy you're talking about really has to go for debt, and the money that we have levied for debt service has to go for debt service. Other churches are paying probably.
Okay, now it just seems to me that should be kind of an easy.
That's the way things used to be before revenue. And folks like you would decide, yeah, that's enough, we're not spending any more than that, or yeah, we should have a little extra for that, but revenue limits took away school board's power to do those things. You're elected, and they took that away from elected officials.
All right, well, thank you, Dennis. Any other questions? All right, well, with that, I will take a motion on the 23-24 preliminary budget.
I'll put a motion forward to accept the preliminary budget for the 2023-24 school year.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Ken, second by Nate. Any further questions? All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we will take a discussion on the adoption of the academic standards.
By state law, every July, we must adopt standards that we're gonna teach, and we traditionally adopt the Wisconsin State standards as our academic standards. And we go beyond those and get more specific, but they have some general standards, and we target them to what's best for our kids. We have much more specific goals, standards for each class, but in general, it's the Wisconsin State standard.
Any questions on that one? All right, I'll take a motion to adopt the WIA's academic standards.
I'll put a motion to accept the Wisconsin academic standards.
I'll second it.
All right, again with Ken, motion and seconded by Nate. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, reviewing administration and board goals. We want to start with administration? Oh, policy, sorry. We have a second reading of the Neola policy.
We went through the committee last month, we had the first reading. If you say you vote to approve the one more time tonight, then I can send it to Neola. They'll update our website with the changes.
I thank the policy committee for all the work on that one. So I will take a motion to approve the second reading of the updated Neola policy.
I'll make the motion to approve the second reading of the updated Neola policies.
I'll second it.
A motion by Nate, seconded by Guy. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. All right, now we will review administration board goals. We'll start with administration.
In my superintendent's report, I listed what my goals are, and I think these goals are going to be in a staff group. Soon to work on what they feel like should be groups for their goals for the building, so they'll probably do theirs next month. In my superintendent's report, my main goals for this past year is to implement our policies from Neola, build a positive culture in our district, and attract and keep staff, and mentor our members of our leadership team. Last thing with Neola is now to implement policies of what into our staff handbook. My last district, we had a Neola policy handbook instead of the one we have now. And what it does is when it talks about something, it says this is policy 3156. So the handbook tells you where in policy all these things are, and actually reduces the size of the handbook. It's not going to treat staff any differently than we are now. It's going to reference our policies that we've adopted because there's a place where they all are listed. And because so many of the things are in now policy, they don't have to be in the handbook because they're already in policy. The policy handbook will reference the policy, so anyone can look it up and see what they are. Any staff member can look it up. It will differentiate professional staff from support staff. They have two separate handbooks because if you look at, there's many things, how pay is different, how time off or vacation, there is a difference in how different employees are treated. So there will be one for professional staff, which is mostly the teachers, and there'll be for another one for aides, custodians, food service, and such. Those would be a difference. So I started going through that today and trying to take our current handbook and make sure that all gets implemented, but in a Neola looking fashion. But again, it will be much shorter than it's been. I hope to have those for the August board meeting. The progress in attracting talent. We went through a thing today about who is looking for staff yet. We went through a long hiring process last year, and it's nothing like this summer's nothing like last year. Remember all the people we were getting, and it's been quieter this year. And I think we're very fortunate because there's a text thread going around. Everyone's asking, like Princeton asked, can't find an English teacher. Anyone and hire somebody to have a second choice. And there's Princeton, Deerfield, Pittsburgh, Cambria, Partyville, Randolph, Wild Rose, Horicon are all can't find whatever. I know Jennifer's gonna talk to you about our math position and her thoughts on that. We're still looking, and I updated the weak candidates and tried to move ours to the top of the list again. We've got a pretty reasonable plan B. And we didn't want to get to plan C. That's kind of what we went through this year. We don't want to do that. But anyway, we're probably very fortunate that we're going through. We didn't go through that this year. I think it's worse this year than it was last year. Andrew and I talked today about, I think it might turn around. But it's gonna take some time yet for the things that kind of sent us into this spiral. I think it's gonna turn, but it's not gonna come quickly. In the meantime, I think one of your goals, attract and retain a high quality staff, ensuring wages competitive in the market. I think we took a big step this past year with pay raises and hiring, that I hopefully we're creating a culture that people would like to be here. This is the place they want their friends to come. Our new tech ed teacher is an example of that. I think, we hope we're creating that kind of culture. And another thing was to mentor a leadership team. Jennifer's out for a full year now. It was quite a year, wasn't it?
It was a great year.
And now we got Brock, so we got another newbie, so we're all gonna work with him and be his best right hand that we can be, and he's already got, people like Colleen and Andrea working with him already too, so he's got a lot of people who are gonna help him be successful. So, those things we're doing last year, and I really don't think those are bad things, just keep on going again with, move forward with, keep that same stuff going, and, you guys can go through your goals here, but I think you guys are spot on what I believe in, and what you believe in. I think we're kind of on the same page, and we looked at those in our leadership meeting today, and you guys are looking up. Yeah, so we want to do that.
I'll just kind of add on the board side of the house. So we looked at last year's, and really kind of meant to kept things consistent. We did add 2 just kind of slight tweaks, or proposing to add, the high quality staff. Again, just making sure that wages are part of that, right? So we need to be competitive. We need to be looking at that. I do, want to look at that in the next finance committee when the final numbers come in, and just kind of say, obviously the budget looks good as a whole, but let's look at wages and what are the levers, what are the things that we have available to us, and just make sure that's a constant focus, always. And then, update and maintain efficient, facilities. I just kind of added the word capital investment. Obviously, the pool was on my mind, but I do think it's important when you go into a school. I mean, the new floors, the tables, there are certain capital investments that I think may not, I don't know, they just have a high ROI in just the mentality of it, in the mentality of the students of the community. So I do think it's nice to just not make sure not just everything is working, but also just kind of looks good and feels like a modern and updated school. So I just want to make sure we're looking at those things if we can. Any other comments, questions on goals? All right, we need a motion.
I don't think so. You shared your goal with us, and there are about it.
Could you email Dennis and I a copy of those ones, please?
Yes.
Do you have a moment?
Yeah.
Or these are ones?
That's it.
These are-
That's it, yeah. All right, we will take, I think, Ryan, you were gonna do a seclusion restraint report?
Yes, those should be in your packets, this year, last fall, after Chuck, you and I, we got training. Crisis intervention training, and then everybody in the IES room, that contracts with us and has their program here in our school from 6 to 5, has also been trained, last school year. We have 4 incidents this year of seclusion, that involved 2 total students involved in that, and they were both special education students. We had 10 incidents of physical restraint, that involved 2 students, and again, those are students in the special education program. And primarily, all of them are part of the program, 3 seats of 5. And I help, I guess, support would be the best word, that room, because their person who sees 5 isn't always in the building. Kind of comes and goes, Because they're responsible for many of the different buildings, in their CC5, which is a large area. So when they're not in the building, I will get called, I help support the room. There are times where when you see a physical restraint, that will compare, oh, what does that mean? There was one this school year where I was the one who did the restraint of the student for about 30 seconds. The rest of them are primarily getting students, making sure that you're not getting hit, you're not getting bit, getting hands unclined from hair, things like that. It's not most of them is part of the job, but it is a part of our job. I would say overall, working here in Fall River, there's been years we've had lower numbers than this. There's been years we've had numbers like this. I don't see a major spike. But it's something that I think is in my mind, it's something you want to document, and you don't want to shy away from it. If it happens, document it. Where you get in trouble is if you don't document it. And something happens, and so I might be a little bit more cautious on that. If something's maybe on the borderline with the document or not, I would say document it just in case.
To make sure it's clear, all visitors were students who were in the IDS program from CISA. Now, they were actually kids from Fall River, but they're in the CISA program and they're supporting that classroom.
Any questions for Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to district reports. Let's go first.
I will go first. All right, so, I just want to thank, I know I thank them a lot, but it's summertime period, so with all the ins and outs of students, moments, with students moving in, they do a great job of keeping us up to date on what's going on, who's exiting, who's coming in. On my end, on the special end, they both do a great job of informing me where kids are at, where the files at, so I can get them in our system, because that takes a little bit of time and work. It helps me to stay on track. So I want to thank both of them. I want to thank also Amy Riventhal and Kendra Hayden for working on the master schedule for us. I met with them this week, made some. Oh, I'm sorry, Anne Marie, actually.
You had to say.
I'm sorry, thank you. Maria Putzler and Amy Riventhal on state. And they do we get the staff input, we try to honor as much of that as we can. And then, there are some things that we had to talk about, just, where's lunch, where's this, where's that this week, and so I appreciate staff's input with that, and then also their work in that and helping us get that set of clear. This summer, I've been spending, some time looking at interventions for the special ed department, trying to get us some potential, research-based programs, that would be a purchase for us, but then they would have more tools in their tool belt for providing interventions for special ed students. So there hopefully in the future more news on that. And then I do have our hiring data tonight. Like I said, we shared with you, so you should have that also in front of you. And before I get started on that, I think I think what we're doing with Kendra Hayden, Jenna Reese, and then the staff all together, our data, I feel really good about. The iReady data that you're gonna see tonight, this is given 3 times a year, spring, fall, winter. I'm sorry, fall, winter, spring. And then the students are also on it during wind time within the iReady and working on that for a period of time. It's geared towards where they're at. They're answering questions, and if they answer correctly, it advances them to harder questions, and if they're not, it breaks it down. Our data overall, one of the things that we've always talked about here is that typical growth. That's what students should get. I'm not going to spend too much time here. You can see typical growth in the area of math. We're at 119% of our students in K through 5 met their typical growth. You're gonna say, well, how do you get 119%? That doesn't make any sense, because some kids move past their typical growth. And so they're included in that number because they've surpassed that. And you're gonna see that over here. So this piece is, for me, a very important piece. This is where kids are placed, whether they're on level or not on level. So you'll see you go all the way from 3 years or more behind, all the way up to your mid-grade level or above. What I want to see when I look at this, I want to see these red ones and yellow ones from here, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. I want to see that decrease. From beginning of the year, end of the year, I want to see these increase. So you'll see here, we're at 5% of 3 or more grades below for K through 5 this year at the start. We reduced that down to 2%. These are some of your neediest kids in the district. Here you went from 10%, you decreased that to 3% by the end of the year. For 1 grade level below, you were at 59%, you decreased that to 21%. From early on grade level, this is the one you want to see bump up. You went from 14, you grew that to 18. Mid or above grade level, you went from 11 up to 55%. So you're seeing that they're catching up in their overall. And then when you also look at the math, when you take these two, you get 73% of your students are either on grade level, mid or above. So that's, I feel good about that for our staff, and I think they should feel good about that too. The next piece you're gonna look at is that stretch growth. That is a pretty lofty goal. iReady says you want to be between 25 to 30% of your students should make their stretch growth. That is a high, when you look at this, that is a high percentage to shoot for. But they say if you're doing that, you're either getting kids surpassing your grade level or being caught up. So they're a year and a half behind, you're making that up, and they're catching up to their grade level peers. Whereas a K through 5, we had 34% of our students meet their stretch growth. Again, you're shooting for 25 to 30%. And then you have a breakdown of that down here by grade level of students who met their stretch growth from K, first, second, third, fourth, all the way down to 5th. Every one of them was above that 25%, which is again that lofty goal. So that's math. Any questions regarding that? All right. It's my hope that you see this correlate then to that 1-day snapshot on the forward exam, where the school report card comes from. That's always your hope. We're going to kind of do the same thing here. I'm not going to focus too much on that typical growth. That's what you want to get. That's kind of expected. You're at 138%. Some kids exceed that, obviously. This current placement, you went from 5% in reading, you reduced that to 1. 15, you reduced that to 5. 49, 1 grade level below, you reduced that to 22. 18, you want to grow that. Get them on grade level, you grew that by 1 to 19. You want to grow that mid or above grade level from 11, we went up to 52%. So you're seeing it come up where it should and go down where it should. That stretch growth, again, for reading, you're at 46% of our students K through 5 met their stretch growth. And then you have down here by the grade levels who met their stretch growth in reading was kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then 5th grade. And they're all above that 25%, which is that, I would say that's a lot of people in the eyes of the iReady program. Overall, I think we did very well. Staff should feel really good about what they're doing. Other areas we can improve, yes. I talked to Ms. Hayden about that today. We have some plans for that of where we can improve on this so that we're seeing even bigger gains in the future. So, any questions regarding that? One thing I did not hit in reading, you added it up, you get to 71% of our students were either at grade level. So they're actually pretty close, 73% in math, 71 in reading.
When you look at the data, what do you hear statewide and national? Kids are scoring lower in math.
Yep.
Not here.
This way,
I'm sorry. Elementary kids are.
Not it, and I think, you know, we saw a little bit of that in that comparison of other school districts that we looked at, but yeah. So then we feel like we're making positive gains, but we want to continue that.
I have one quick question. Sure. If you have tremendous stretch growth, which you want,
Yes.
the next time you assess it, it's based off the previous stretch, so it will go down potentially, right? Or
Yeah, so you could have students in there who don't. Who are, it's gonna be harder for that fifth grader who's reading at an eighth grade level
yeah,
to stretch.
they're
that
getting
further.
more stretched out. Okay, that's
So, and we are, I talked to Ms. Hayden about that today. I said, well, some of this data, if you look at that, you really broke it down and looked at the students. You wanna find those ones who are not making their stretch growth, not making the typical growth, but also below grade level.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with Ms. Reese, Lisa Roach and myself, when we look at those neediest kids. But there are gonna, we had a specific example of a student who was reading at an eighth grade level.
I just think, Mr. Pollitt here, like, the fifth grade teacher might have the worst stretch, but that's because all your other teachers are doing so well, and even though you are good, it doesn't appear.
And that's where that deeper dive, of looking at where
Yeah.
is that, who is that?
Okay.
I didn't get into that, I agree with you. I was already long-winded. Any other good point though.
I just wanna make sure I was reading that.
You're reading that exactly right. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
You wanna get that for me?
Yep.
I don't know how to use that.
Go ahead.
Since we're already on it, I'll just go ahead and jump in with mine. I don't have pretty reports like Ryan has. Instead, what I have is Kendra pulled every one of our students' data for me. And then I'm a paper pencil kind of girl, so I just started analyzing it, doing numbers, percentages, all of those things, and then keeping my notes. My goal is, I was in contact with IXL, we use IXL, they use iReady. Is there a way to make it full screen? Oh, I know. So what we do, when I tried to pull it on IXL, my first year, Kendra's first year using it, it was not pulling the reports, so we've been working with them to find out what we need to do a little bit differently in order to get those reports pulled. I don't have mine broken down by middle school and then high school. I have mine broken down by grade level because that's the data that I had, and I think it shows us kind of where we have really high classes, we have classes that are a little bit lower, and all of that. So if we look at middle school ELA, it's based upon this test at the end of the school year, 51% of our students were showing that they were at grade level. All but 3 of those students had that growth. So every single student in 6th grade ELA had made some sort of growth from the beginning of the year till the end. 12 went from below to at or exceeding grade level, and then one went from at grade level to exceeding grade level. What I did see in looking at the color coding was exactly kind of like what you were pointing at. I had a student who was at grade level, exceeded grade level at their mid-year, and then went back down to grade level, but the scores were only like, I think it was like 30 points or something like that differential between them. So I think that was between the top and the bottom, you know, so like they were higher. They may grow from the beginning to the end, but they kind of did this little dip. It is just a test in that moment. How are they doing? What are they doing? Those sorts of things. With math, and then basically this chart is their growth chart. So this is each individual student, and this is where they were at the beginning to the end. So it just kind of gives you a visual of like, yes, our students are growing. Then for 6th grade math, again, we see the growth. 40% of our students were at grade level, all but 1 had growth. 10 went from below to at or exceeding grade level, and 2 went from at grade level to exceeding grade level. So we're seeing that growth happening throughout the year. 7th grade, 50% were at grade level, all but 2 had growth. 8 went from beginning grade level to exceeding, and 6 went from at grade level, or I'm sorry, 8 went from below grade level to either at or exceeding, and 6 went from at grade level to exceeding. So they're all making their growth. Middle school math, same thing. We see that trend upward. There's always going to be our students here who are, you know, the anomalies who either don't care that day or don't care at all, or it could be other reasons why. 7th grade math, 29% of our students were at grade level, all but 3 had growth. 8 went from below grade level to at or exceeding grade level, and 1 went from grade level to exceeding grade level. Eighth grade ELA, this is again one of our higher achieving classes. 66% of the students were at grade level, all but 4 had growth, 9 went from below grade level to at or exceeding, and 5 went from grade level to exceeding. And then math, same thing, 23% only were at grade level for math, all but 3 had growth, 5 went from below to at or above, and 2 were at grade level. With regards to middle school, some of the things that we are doing to try to look at this is, one, give the students some motivation to take this and have that intrinsic desire to learn and get better. The cool thing, and Ryan kind of touched on this about iReady and IXL, is it's a tool that allows us to see where a student is at and then push them from where they're at to get better. So some of our students, I mean, you were all in middle school at some point, you know, they're like, oh, well, I know if I don't do really well in the fall, then it's easier and I can get through it. So it's kind of trying to motivate them to continually do their best for us to be able to see where are you actually at and what can you do. Some of the things that we're doing to get around that is we are looking at implementing 1 day a week, kind of like an honors or a free win period, where the kids would normally be doing something else, whatever that might be, whether it's a second day of IXL practice or whatever. Okay, if you are at or above grade level, or you've made X jump, we're working it out right now with the middle school teachers. You then on this day, say Thursday, during win, you can go to the NPR and play games or watch a movie or do something fun, maybe go to the gym or something. So trying to find some sort of extrinsic motivation for those students who are not as motivated. I also think that we are purchasing a new math curriculum for the middle school. I think that is going to help. It's linking us directly together, so there's a solid scope and sequence. We've been working on getting our course guides done for middle school through high school, so that we actually have ladders of learning, what's proficient, where are they growing, and those sorts of things. And then I think too, it's super important for us to find high quality teachers to go through the content, to not only be able to manage the class and do all of that, but to be able to reach all of the kids where they're at. And that is one of my goals segueing into the other, we'll get to high school too, with the math, is that my goal is to find a quality math person to have in our school. I would not feel right just sticking a warm body in a classroom to have them there. That's not good for our students, it's not good for our teachers, it's not good for our community. So I'm working diligently to try to find one. I did several full cold calls off of WeCan last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, last Friday. Had a couple kind of thinking about it, but you know, nothing. Today I had a teacher talk to me that she had her son in OT, and she was like, oh, what do you do? And the teacher said, I teach in Fall River. Oh, do you like it? Yes, I love it. Well, my husband is a math teacher and hates his job. I'm like, okay, so I've got that this afternoon. I'm pulling licenses. So I'm going to call and try to see where we're at with that lead tomorrow. So it's not that I mean, we're there. It's just, I want to make sure whoever is in our classroom in front of our students is good, not just somebody there. Questions about middle school? Yeah.
The 23-29%, do we know what national average is?
I don't for the IXL, because the way we were doing our diagnostic, in order for it to produce those pretty charts that Ryan had, it has to be done continuously. So they were in one diagnostic, but they needed to be in this daily diagnostic, is how she explained it. So I know very little about IXL. Kendra Hayden does all of that for me. And so she's like, I know exactly what we need to do. So I was talking with her this morning, and we should be set to be able to get that information to have those norms as well. And then in the fall, once we have our forward data, I'll be able to share with you, like, is this where we're at with our forward? Like, is this actually where our students are at? Or maybe on this other normed state test, maybe they tried a little harder, maybe they didn't, you know, just to kind of see. I do think that this is a trend, however, because one of the things that we looked at in talking with Adrian Shepard, our middle school math teacher, is we're not running the algebra, 8th grade algebra for next year. There were not enough students in 7th grade that one showed on IXL 2 on their test scores from before, and 3 what they were looking like in the classroom, to be able to justify jumping them past 8th grade math. So what he's gonna do instead is have 2 sections of 8th grade math, and he's gonna push, you know, by differentiating those students that were showing that they were at or above grade level. And I can just kind of show you a little bit, like, this was our 8th grade, the red is below grade level. So the blue and the green are at or above. If we go to our 7th grade, you can see there are a few kids that showed that they were, but it wasn't enough to justify having them in a totally separate class. So he and I had a lot of conversations at the end of the year when we were looking at, do we offer that algebra class for the 8th grade? And we couldn't justify it because there just weren't enough students to be able to have that second section. And so many of the kids were showing, in his opinion, as well as on the data, that they were far enough behind that we would be doing them a disservice to not give them that 8th grade math and just jump them up into it. I do think it's a gap that we can bridge. I think it's gonna take some work. I think we're gonna need to implement the curriculum we're purchasing with Fidelity and have somebody in there working with them to be able to bridge those gaps.
Do we have some type of game plan so those very couple of kids don't plateau?
Yes, so, and that was one of the cool things when we look back. So several of them are going from like grade level to exceeding. And several of like our students, our high achieving students, generally speaking, like, and I can't show you with the names on, I can maybe print me one without. They're having still solid growth on IXM, or yeah, IXM. So yes, that is, we've talked about that with Adrian as well. It's very important to make sure that they're getting pushed. Yep. High school was interesting, with regards to what our data ended up looking like. Again, I think a lot of it was the strategy and how it was being done. Instead of having the teachers working on IXL as a bell ringer or just a normal part of their class, it turned into a once a week, oh, we're gonna do IXL. Oh, I don't wanna do it because you're on a computer, you're pushing those kinds of things. So when we look at our high school data, you're gonna see that it is kind of all over the place. These were nice, pretty lines. When we look at the high school, even for ELA, it's not. So they were kind of all over the board. 9th grade ELA, 72% of the students were at grade level by the end of the year. All but 5 had growth. 3 went from above grade level to at or exceeding. 5 went from at grade level to exceeding. So they're pushing, they're getting better. This was 9th grade math. Only 6% of the students were demonstrating that they were at grade level. However, if we look at where we were at the end of the year with math and what was all kind of going on, this makes perfect sense to me. I think you know me enough to where I'm not an excuse maker, but I would bet that if we come in at the beginning of 10th grade this upcoming year and they take their IXL, I think these numbers will be better. I don't think that that's indicative of where we are at. With that being said, however, I did compare our math scores with, we did get their pre-ACT scores back already. And 27% of our 9th graders met the pre-ACT benchmark when they took that pre-ACT. So that might be a little bit more in line with where they're actually at. But again, it's a one-time test where if you're not going to college and you don't care about these things, then you're not always going to try as hard. But I do think that that is a little bit more indicative, and I'll have a clearer idea of where we're at with the forward for the middle school once we have that data. I don't have those scores back yet. 10th grade looks a little more killywampus. 33% of students were at grade level in ELA. All but 21 had growth, again, a smaller number. 5 went from being below grade level at the beginning to exceeding. Or at or exceeding, and 3 went from at grade level to exceeding grade level. And then 10th grade math, again, this is where the lines go all crazy. 10th grade math, when they took it, 0 were at grade level, all but 22 had growth. None went from below grade level to at or exceeding, and 0 went to grade level. We definitely have some issues going on, specifically with our math, and we're working on trying to figure that out. also pulled up their, pre-ACT 10th grade, 31% scored that showed that they were at their benchmark for the pre-ACT. So again, I don't think that this was necessarily indicative of what they really can do. With regards to high school, my goal is to link their progress with IXL to Open Campus. So I'll share all of that with you next month at the board meeting when I share the handbook with you. Just to, again, to try to get some of that extrinsic motivation, because students, we need to have them in our house. We need to be working with them. If they aren't showing us that they're at grade level, or that they're 2 grade levels or more behind where they should be, they have to be here working. Whether that's getting interventions with another teacher, working with the math teacher to try to get caught up, or whatever it is we need to do. The cool thing about IXL is it also has the tools within it to teach the kids to grow from wherever they're at. But we have to find that motivation for them to be able to use them. And I'm hoping that maybe that might be a way to be able to motivate them to get there. Again, we're implementing curriculum, so we're going to be working on getting those students behind by having a set curriculum. And we need to find a high quality math teacher. Questions about high school?
How much of this bad testing due to the attitude the kids had with the teacher that was in the classroom?
I think that was it. I mean, it was pretty chaotic, and I'm extremely grateful for Chris Ducat for coming in and working through some of the things that she was able to get through. She did a great job of pushing the kids, getting them back on track, but she did unfortunately walk into chaos. And so some of that spewed over into the behaviors of some of the children when she was in there as well, which we helped, we worked with her, we handled it. But it is what it is, and now we have to try to move forward and bridge those gaps.
How much, and I mean, obviously. In the private sector, if you have need, you just go out and buy it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just go buy it, so, I mean, are there people around that you know of that you could buy?
I'm trying. Yeah. Nathan Wenzel was in my office a couple weeks ago, last week. My time is getting away from me. And we pulled up, and I think there was 219 math openings in the state of Wisconsin when he and I pulled it up on weekend. That was middle school, high school. I had dinner with one of my girlfriends who is now teaching she's an instructional coach at East Troy. They have 2 positions.
That are open.
So
UW lacrosse, what they tell you?
UW lacrosse had 1 secondary math teacher that they graduated in May. 1. So, I mean, I've been reaching out to all the colleges, universities. We've got the applications in for an intern. It's just we're running low.
And I forget his name, so I apologize. The guy that was the assistant basketball coach.
Yeah, we
Tried.
reached out to him numerous times.
Met everybody. He was a tough guy, but.
I called him, Kristen Book reached out to him.
Maybe
just-
Pencil did.
Yeah,
He just doesn't want to come back.
I think he's.
I think he's getting out.
That's
Yeah,
what-
you
that's-
called him too.
That's what Olivia had said. I don't know how Olivia got that.
And maybe Kristen, because I think that's what he had told Kristen.
Okay, maybe she told Maggie or something.
Yeah.
maybe she-
I hit him up at the banquet when we went to the academic honors, banquet, all conference banquet.
I'm
was
sorry, I
trying to
can't
schmooze him.
can't remember his.
Yeah, I
name.
can't either. What's
Mr.
Mr. Hoffman.
Hoffman, there you go. Yeah.
Good.
So, it's a tough environment right now.
Mr. Schultz was a middle
Yep.
school
Yep, so
math
he's
teacher. but
part
you
of
can't-
our plan B, so, do you have more questions on this, or I can go into the math piece on?
Yeah.
Yep, and then I'll jump
When
in.
do we switch to Common Core math? When do we switch to Common Core math? Like at what age?
I don't know.
Come from that, I don't know.
After 25 years of teaching math, I don't think that there's any big difference in Common Core stuff. There's still different base and stuff that we always did.
Please jump in, you know more than I do.
Well, one of the things that I think we've talked about is the importance of the curriculum adoption that you're doing for math, which they haven't. And so when you don't have something, you're just kind of pulling, it's not guiding, it's not cohesive through the grade levels and building up on. That is a huge missing piece that I think once that gets put in place, you're gonna see a difference.
It's got that cohesive fifth grade, not that kind of chaotic for 3 years.
And I asked the question because I tutor kids in math and I can't do it. And I've got a master's degree in accounting, right? I'm very good at math. With the way it's taught, sometimes I cannot.
It's just very
understand it.
different.
So
Well, I mean, I can say too, so I had between my oldest and my youngest, there's 10 years difference between them. I could help my oldest with her math. It changed, but then there's 6 between my middle and my oldest, like, it depends on how it's being taught, like at that particular, they all went through the same school. I just think it depends on how it's, because all 3 of them had it different. By the time Parker got in, I'm like, no, I Ash, come help, I can't do this.
And I think, I'm not trying to dismiss what you're saying, but I think once we have a scope and sequence from the 5th to the 6th and 7th to 8th. If you're gonna see it, I think you're even 5th and kind of just
Right.
the pulling. It's not
And I
real-
think-
won't work.
And that's, I'll own some of that. It wasn't until the end of November, beginning of December, when I got enough wherewithal of what was going on to realize that we did not have a set curriculum for anything middle school high. And so immediately that became our goal. I went into slight, panic. We need to fix this now. And so that's one of the things that my teachers had for their exit was they had to have course guides done with their standards, their essential standards, all of that. And then this upcoming year, we're working, and Kendra Hayden actually just shared with me, she's working to put it together for in-service. And that's what I mean by the learning ladders, where we're covering, okay, by, you're learning this skill in 6th grade. We're working on becoming proficient at it in 7th grade. By 8th grade, it's mastered. So we're gonna cycle back and we're gonna review it so we don't lose it, but then we're gonna keep pushing forward. So it's kind of like that cycling back, and that alignment has been missing. And we're gonna get there hopefully by the end of this year to know, okay, this is what we need to do. And part of that, I'm not gonna knock not having a straightforward formal curriculum or textbook to work off of, but we haven't had that in middle school in years. It's been kind of, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna, and there was a scope and a semblance of a scope and sequence, but I think it was just kind of all over the board. The cool thing about the curriculum we're purchasing for middle school is it has the interventions involved in as well, so it'll hit also those enrichments. So once it's all laid out. Some is paper pencil, because sometimes the kids get sick of the computers, some of it's online. So I'm excited to see where we're at in 2 to 3 years when I'm standing here in front of you again, going over this, because I genuinely believe we're gonna see some growth.
Now you want to go to plan B?
Okay, can I sit there? So math, so I kind of alluded to already some of the things that I've been doing with regards to math. I genuinely believe that our biggest factor in getting somebody that's effective here is going to be word of mouth by our teachers. I've had a couple leads. We had a lead from Ryan Seiker had a lead for me, which is not completely dead, but the other person has been on vacation, then Ryan's been on vacation, and then up at FFA with the kids, and I'll tell you about that too. So I haven't given up. However, we do have a plan B. Our plan B entails us having Eric Schultz teaching algebra, because we will only have one section of algebra, which that was decided before I knew weren't gonna have a math teacher, keeping the 8th grade down in 8th grade. So Eric Schultz will be able to teach algebra. Nathan Wenzel has graciously agreed to teach both sections of geometry. And then Holly Trotter has agreed to pick up the life skills math as a part of her day. So we could go back and use DCA, the Destinations Career Academy. That was an option. However, given that they are core classes that we struggle in, I felt very strongly that we needed to have our students in front of a live teacher that knows them that is going to be able to be there to help push them from wherever they're at to get them further. I think it's a little bit different with the DCA when you're having elective classes that kids are choosing to take or wanting to take. But for this, I felt very strongly that we need to have a strong teacher there or we're not gonna bridge those gaps. That's also why we are late getting our schedules out. So I know there's been a lot of emails coming in and parents wondering why they don't have schedules yet. This past week, we were able, like last week, we were able to secure the agreement of our teachers. Thank goodness, wanting to make sure that we're doing the best for our kids. And so Amy has been working diligently to create a Plan B schedule. So that if the last week of August, we end up with this great math teacher, she can just slide that teacher into that section. And then we would use some of that teacher's time to try to work on interventions also with some of our students. So we've got a class list kind of, or a schedule hiding in the background of if we do end up being able to find a math teacher, but we're gonna be going forward with Plan B while I'm still diligently looking for someone to fill that.
But Jennifer's pressing me, I can't put a warm body in, because that's not gonna work. But we have some good people in our building who can teach math, we have to have math. If we can reassign or remove or give an overload compensation to them, they're going to give up their prep and I'll teach that class instead. And put Nathan Lenz on front of a class, an extra class of geometry kids who suffered in algebra, they're gonna get some really good math this year. Eric Schultz taught math for years, so he, in addition to his special ed kids, give those kids an algebra class, and he's taught algebra before, so it's the best use of our staff if we have to reassign who we have. We have some utility players, and we may have to have them do multiple things and compensate them for their extra time. Be creative. It's better to do that than put someone in who's not good, it's not gonna work.
And we were very specific about, so I talked to Eric first, pulled him in first, and we looked at the schedule. We looked at rosters to see where his students were so that he wouldn't be missing minutes, and so then we placed that class, the algebra class, during a time when most of the students were in an elective, so they weren't in a core class that he would need. So, I mean, that wasn't just done willy-nilly either. We specifically looked at where can we put these classes to create the least amount of chaos within his ability to do his job and be there for his students as well. And we will be utilizing Ashley, his aide. And then with the numbers, with having, again, thank goodness we had our other special ed teacher, because now like we're able to kind of disperse some of those caseloads a little bit more equally as well, instead of just having him totally overloaded. And then others, filtering back and forth.
Is there any possibility, and maybe this is really foolish, but I look at Tom there. I know you teach fifth grade, correct? I know he could teach third grade, second grade. He could go to middle school and teach. I'm just saying, you could do it. Because you're a motivated person. And I think most teachers, they're motivated. If they can motivate kids, I think that is the whole key. Your teaching skills are one thing, but motivating kids is another. Could you get a teacher that maybe doesn't have a math degree? And could you get a solid motivator teacher that could teach math?
And Dennis has that on the posting. Do you have a license or do you have a bachelor's and would be willing to get a math license? So he does have that in the posting as well.
But you would have to have a math license to teach.
We can get an emergency one.
Okay,
And we said we'd help you get your math.
because I do believe that teaching is 80%
You
motivation.
either got it or you don't. in my school.
Yeah, relationship.
Yeah, you gotta be able to motivate kids and get it on.
And it's a little trickier, I think, too, with math though, because of the sequencing of how you get to solving problems or learning things, you know what I mean? So I think
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a math person, so that's why I'm saying next, I don't know, like, I'm a pretty smart girl, but I don't think I can do math. Yeah, I'm not. I'm like, oh, what was that? Dyslexic with numbers, but,
You're right. The way I do math, from what I graduated from in the seventies is probably totally different. But you know, if you know math, you come up with the same answer.
Yep.
You know, it's just, to me, if you get I don't care if it's a young, an older person, whatever. A motivator
Right.
is where your teaching has got to,
And
he's
that
gotta be
is
able
one
to get
of the
along.
things, though. You're exactly right. We tossed around one of the ideas of, like, we seriously were talking about using our Destination Career Academy. Because I don't know what, I mean, we were stuck. What are we gonna do? And then having somebody, if you have somebody that's in the room that will be able to keep them on task, like you said, motivate them, build those relationships. I think it would be another solution, another viable solution. I just want to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our kids.
yes, no, I understand that, but Tom, do you think I'm way off base with something like that, or do you think that? But, I mean. Do you think that that's,
Yeah,
you know, do you think that's off base, is getting somebody that,
I think it's just fun to do that. And I think, for me, I think it's easier elementary, the kids still want to please.
yeah, yeah.
And I think, you know, when I think it's, but yeah, if you can get the kids to do it, be excited, and respect, it makes it a lot easier.
yeah. And like I worked with, the toughest non-special ed kids for 7 years when I wasn't here, and it's about getting them motivated. How do you help them to see what you need them to do, and how do you get them to want to do it? That's more than half the battle.
Even our job is, we're disciplining kids, I mean, how many kids are down by us, but we have to discipline you, but we're gonna try to build a relationship with you, so that next time I see you in the hall, you're not being disciplined, I can keep motivating you, stay out of trouble, make great decisions, and everything we do here based around that. That's number one.
So I haven't given up. We have a plan B.
Okay,
Schedules should be out the end of this week.
your plan B sounds
Yeah.
fine to me,
Yeah.
I'm not,
And it's for the semester, and then by like probably end of September-ish, I'm gonna start reaching out to universities again, trying to maybe find a student teacher for second semester. Cause I also don't wanna burn out our people.
Yeah.
I would need to do whatever we can to keep our Nathan Wenzels and Holly Trotters and, like Eric Schultz's. We need them here, and if we overload them too much for too long, that's gonna also not be good. So,
no, I don't have a problem with what
Yeah.
your plan A and plan B are, I just think that, teaching is teaching,
Mhm.
but motivating
right,
is the key.
Yep.
That, you have to have somebody that the kids can really relate to. And-
I agree.
I just didn't know if it has to be a math teacher, or if we could hire somebody that wasn't a math teacher, put them in math.
And that's what we did with Adrian, like that's what we're doing with at middle school with Adrian. He had some background in math, he has a master's degree, he's taught at the college level, but he's now getting his license for math.
Okay.
And he's great with the kids, they respond to him, they like him, he's able to push them. I mean, so it's exactly what you're describing is what we were fortunate enough to get with Adrian. Like we were here, I think the second week of August was when we hired him. So that's why I haven't given up hope yet.
So there was also a late one.
Well, he was hired before I got in.
Oh,
Yeah, it happened. It was him, Krista Powers, again, Krista Powers, Tom Taylor, our PE teacher. We found all of them in August.
So we have emergency, Eric Schultz. Special ed, you're right, want to do the job, we can give them work, so that's.
Well, if you would like to do that.
No.
Heads without.
Any other questions about, I just have a couple more fast things I found. Schedules I did already, we're working in August with, Mr. Hartman, we have a team of teachers, coaches, and parents that we're getting together to look at our website. If anybody has ideas for what you would like, our website to do a little bit differently or a little bit better, let us know what those might be. We're gonna just have a think tank, if you will, bring those ideas back to leadership and then see whether or not our current website company can do those things for us. Or whether or not we maybe have to look at another company. I don't know if you remember, but during the AD interviews, there were two different people that said, yeah, I went on your website, but our website is not super inviting for people who are outside of our building and know how to navigate it. So that's one of the things. So if we're a parent looking to get, open enroll our kids, first place you're gonna go is the website and social media. And so that's gonna be our next step to try to update that. And then I already talked about the growth and instructional practices. Oh, no, I didn't. One of the other things Ryan and Kendra and I have been working on was making sure that our teachers have a clear guide for their growth, like their educator effectiveness plan. So we've been working to see, okay, year one, if you're in year one, these are our expectations of you, and these should be your expectations of us as your admin. Mapping it out for the whole 3-year process. So we'll be rolling that out. And then I will be bringing, this one might take a minute. I will be bringing the handbook to share with you next month, but there's one piece in it that I'm not comfortable making the decision on with just talking with my teachers and our leadership team. Because I think it could end up being controversial. So I just would like to get your input on how you feel or what you think about students wearing hats in school. We met twice as a handbook team with my middle school, high school teachers. The overall consensus was that they're like, we really don't care. It doesn't affect them learning. It doesn't create issues. Like it saves us time from having to argue or whatever. However, I also know that that's a part of decorum. It's a part of, practices of what we want to look like and how we are as a school. We are a community that in jobs, when kids go out, generally speaking, they can have their hats on. Society is changing, but I also I could go either way. This is not something I want to create an uproar in our community on. So I wanted to just kind of get your opinion on what you think about it.
I think hats should be fine. I wear a hat besides
Right.
inside of a building like this,
Like in
90% of the time.
Right.
But like when I teach my students, I'd say out of my 100 students, 5 don't wear a hat.
Mhm. Right.
But I teach mostly, 20-year-old men in the trade, so they have hats.
What I was gonna say is it's getting more and more common. I do video calls all day long with professionals and more hats.
Mhm.
So more and more hats and hooded sweatshirts and people aren't even putting on collars anymore.
Right.
And, the hat is almost like because there's so many video camera, it's my team, it's my city, it's my whatever. So there's more and more hats in business. I could care less. As long as it's not a problem for the team. I would go to the teachers.
But and I talked with the teachers, I was talking with Lauren Severson this morning. And she's like, oh, you might want to run that one past Schultz. And Schultz is like, no, I just enforce it because it's the rule. He's like, I honestly could care less. So like he was one, because he wasn't at any of our meetings, and she's like, oh, I would probably run it past him. So I pulled up, I take mine off, like you've got, because that's how I grew up. That's how, and I told my kids are not allowed to wear their hat at the supper table. Like that's my thing, but I don't know if it's a fight worth fighting in our school anymore, or if it is. If you think it is, I'm totally fine. If not, then I'm good with that too.
Well, what negative have you heard? What negative feedback have you heard from a hat?
None.
And
The reason it got, so a little history, the reason it got put into a lot of school policies was in the 90s and early 80s with like the gang violence and stuff. I mean, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. It would follow the dress code, like you can't have tobacco products or inappropriate things on it. Would follow just like that.
I don't think it probably makes a difference if it's a hat or a hoodie.
Right.
I mean, you can't tell a kid he can't probably put his hood up, and
Right.
if they don't wear a hat, they'll probably put their hood up, so.
With the stop that too.
Well, and a lot of them will,
You know-
they're out in the shop and then they come in or they're, it just. No, I have heard none to answer your question. Nothing other than that's how, that's how it's always been.
You decide what a battle is like.
Yeah,
At elementary, like Tom said, we're more willing to play along, per se. We don't allow at the elementary the hats, so that, I wasn't planning on doing that, I'm not sure this.
And that's fine, like, this
Unless-
is mostly like.
I just want to make it clear for anybody to be
Yeah.
listening or.
Mhm. Okay. All right. If you do end up, if you're like, oh, no, this is, somebody watched it or somebody said this and whatever, let me know, 'cause like I said, it's not a hill, I just, if I can make life a little bit easier for my teachers, and the other thing, that's the other thing that Eric had said, he said that my issue, I think it was either Eric or Lauren. My biggest issue is when a kid asks me why, and I don't have a valid reason for why. And I don't have one. I don't have a reason why anymore, because society has kind of shifted over to that other side. Or is it? And then, I was gonna give my shout out to Brock. He has been great, jumping in, very busy. He and I sat and had a lot of discussions about the co-curricular book. How we could, help our athletes, push them to be the best they can be, while also, working with them to be the best that they can be as young adolescents. So,
What was Brock's start day?
July.
Yeah, he was working in June.
Yeah, I mean, his official day was like the 8th, whatever, that Monday
Seventh.
after, yeah, the 7th,
If he was working in June.
yeah.
His multi days were in the end of June. Yeah.
And that's all I have, sorry for taking.
Yeah. This important things for you to hear, see, what's going on, so that's the important things. Half of my report, we talked about in other areas, but I'll just mention that, a couple weeks ago, Cindy and I gave a tour to a bunch of ladies who were on the gymnastic teams in the 70s and early 80s, and the coach, Mary Roth, and Cindy's actually a friend of hers, married for many, many years, so they're in the gymnastics community together. But many of them got together on Friday night and Saturday night, they were at John Drew's house for a party on Friday or Saturday, and then they all came here to see the trophies and hold them, take pictures, and we put a bunch of stuff on social media. And it was really interesting, because they all graduated in the late 70s, and the people who were on the championship teams in 81 and 82, many of them were at these different events they had that weekend, so they got to really celebrate together and had a great time, but they wanted to take a tour of the school, so we took them around, showed them all different ways. One of the ladies became our teacher, so she loved being in the art room, couldn't believe all the stuff was in our art room. I never had this good stuff in my classroom. And then another lady was, I think it was a bio teacher, and they all wanted to go to the gym, and they were actually doing cheers in the old days in the gym. I got that on video of it, but it was really fun for them to go around the school and have memories and talk about it, and they were so impressed with what our building looks like. And Jeff talked about this earlier. They couldn't believe how well their alma mater looks now. They were very, very impressed. And some of these people live far away, some of them live around, some have grandkids here right now, or they live in a neighboring community. So it was really great public relations for our community, and to celebrate, two state championship teams. And if you didn't know, the coach that was here, she was the art teacher at the time too. And she left here to be the coach at UW Platteville, men's and women's gymnastics and head track coach. And then she left there at Ball State University in Ohio, was the head gymnastics coach there, took her teams and people to the NCAA tournament. So we had a very successful person here at that time, and that's our state championships team wise. So it was really cool for them to see the school, and they were so still very impressed with it. I mentioned there, I'm going to the Wazoo Legal Seminar at the end of this month. It's really nice next week, actually. Anytime you hear a new law coming out or a new court case, they'll tell me about that Surgeon Bay, which of course it's Surgeon Bay in the summer for a conference. They're not done. But that's where all the lawyers get up and tell us what we need to know to make us that we're following the laws, and we're getting a lot of stuff back to these guys, special ed law or student law or human resources things. So they hit every different type of thing could be possible. So it's really, really a good time to catch up on those things, and they keep us up to date. So that's what we're doing. And just tell you a little bit more about the conference I went to. I feel like I should have a full PowerPoint like that Field 8 kids did. But I went to Seattle for the National Federation High School Athletics Conference, and it's an amazing opportunity to just go to those places. The speakers are here. We had 1,000 people from all over the different states, and you meet people from Alaska and Hawaii and all these other schools. Here in the board member roundtable, what it's like in their school, in their states, and every state is very, very different, even some of the sports they have. It's really different what is in some states. Some states have slow pitch softball in the fall and fast pitch softball in the spring, for instance. It's interesting what different people have. But all the different meetings to go to, about injuries, rules, chatting on shot clock and why we don't have shot clock or other places. NILs, name, image, and likeness, there are many states, that's in high school, it's okay. You can get your name, image, and likeness paid as a high school athlete, which seems crazy, but it's coming. There's 13 states that already allow it, and there's a few more that are moving that direction, so I wouldn't be shocked. It seems weird to think about that, but that could be coming. The baseball and softball rules, and they just at that meeting, they have the final decision on the spring rules, so baseball next spring, if the WIA approves it, the coach can signal the catcher and tell him what pitch to call. You can have people look at his watch and whatever, or a buzzer, and he put down the fingers with the pitch and tell the pitcher what it's gonna be. Softball, they're looking at changing the pitching rule. Used to be your foot has to stay in contact with the rubber, and then you were able to drag your foot across the ground, you couldn't leave the ground. Now they're looking at both feet can be off the ground, as long as you deliver the ball when you land, and don't replant and push off again. So it's interesting to hear what's going on in other states, those things, and then the Hall of Fame banquet's just amazing. Remember Carlos Boozer, NBA player, he got into the National High School Hall of Fame, and Mika Catchings, a WNBA player, from Tennessee, got in. Tony Romo was supposed to go in at this time. Wisconsin nominated him and they offered it to him, but he wasn't available that week. And they don't want such a big name go in unless he's actually there, that draws a big crowd. So maybe he'll go next year. I got my Iowa shirt on because the young lady from Iowa she's the head women's wrestling coach at Iowa. She was the first girl to ever win a state high school wrestling championship in Hawaii a number of years ago. Now Iowa is starting women's wrestling. So last year's the first year as coach, and they have a meet and greet for all these actors. So we go up and say, our son moved to Iowa City, his best friend is on the women's road coach. So David's your son? It's like, yeah, David's our son. So she knew Lowell, who was the coach, and all the coaches got together, and she knew David from that connection. So that's my Iowa connection with her tonight.
All right, well, thank you all for the updates. Do we have any other items on the agenda? Okay, with that, I will take the motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, we got the Nate Ken connection on motion and second, and all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.